Hari Om, Bhagavad Gita, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, chapter 18, verse 18. Bhagavan in the last verse said, the one who has no ego, whose mind is clear that Atma is Agartha, Atma is actionless. Even if he happens to kill the entire army, he does not kill. His fruits of actions, whatever it is, it will not bind him. So, whatever we do, for those actions, there are some fruits. Those fruits will always bind us. Whereas the person who has appreciated, whose mind is clear that Atma is Akarta, it is a non doer, the fruits of his actions will not bind him. That is what Bhagwan Krishna said in verse 17. Another important thing I want to say, Bhagavad Gita, it is very scientific in nature. Science of life, extremely scientific. One cannot read bits and pieces, here and there some verses, just for the sake of reading and try to understand it. Impossible. It will be foolishness to think by knowing one or two verses in Bhagavad Gita you can reach the goal. Impossible. Everything is in order, methodically, systematically, step by step. Bhagavan Krishna leads us to moksha. One has to understand each and every verse. Every chapter has to be understood before going into the next verse or the next chapter. Else it will be a complete disaster. Bhagavan, in this chapter also, in the final chapter, chapter 18, slowly builds up everything. He is talking about action. Now, in verse 18, he says, what are the components of action, constituents, and what are the impulses of action? Verse 18. Jnanam yeyam parijñātam trivida karma chodana karanam karma karteti trivida karma sangraha. Again a wonderful verse. Wonderful verse. One has to understand what is action. We are all doing actions without understanding what it is. What are the impulses for action? What are the assemblies that are involved in performing that action? Everybody is doing all the action. If you ask question, what is action? Nobody will be able to answer. Bhagavan gives a beautiful answer. What is an impulse for an action? Swami Dayananda Saraswati says, Chodana means that which impels you to perform an action. Karma Chodana. Three things impel one to perform an action. First is Jnanam, Jneyam, Parijñāta. Jnanam means knowledge. Jneyam means object of knowledge. Parijñāta means knower. These three things must be present to impel an action, to perform an action. Jnanam is knowledge of objects. To have knowledge, there must necessarily be an object. Without object, where is the question of knowledge? Nothing is there. Then what knowledge one can have? Jnana is the basis for an action, because without jnana, no action can be performed. Swami Dayananda Saraswati says, whether it is Vedic or secular activity, one must have knowledge of what it is and why are you doing it. Without that knowledge, that it is a means for a given end, no action is possible. To accomplish something, it is not enough if you know what you want, but you must also have the knowledge of how to get it. I repeat, these are all very, very important sentences. To accomplish something, it is not enough if you know what you want. You must also have the knowledge of how to get it. We all want money. Who is not needing money? But only a few people have the knowledge how to get that money. In a dharmic way, I am not talking about adharmic ways. Hence, Bhagavan says, knowledge is also for the sake of karma, unless we make use of it differently. Then Nyeya, object of knowledge. Object of knowledge is as much important as the knowledge of the object. All words used by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Without the object, where is the question of acquiring knowledge about it? A few sentences back I said, without some object is not there. Where is the question of acquiring knowledge about it? Only when the objects are there, one acquires knowledge about it. Then he gets a desire to acquire that object, because of which he performs action, impulse. Then parijnata, knower. Knowledge is there, object is there. But if there is no knower, that is you, yourself is not there, the person is not there, then what is the use of that knowledge and the objects? There must be a knower who has the knowledge about the object, and the objects must also be present. Then in that case, knower with this knowledge performs an action to acquire the object. Hence these three, that is Jnanam, Jneyam and Parijnata, they are all the impulses to an action, Karma Chodana. So three things: knowledge, object of the knowledge and the knower. These three must be present. These are the impulses for an action. Then what are the things that are involved in action? Karanam is the means. Bhagavan says in the second sentence, Karanam karma karteti. So Karanam is the means to perform an action, instrument. Swami Dayananda Saraswati quotes Adi Shankara here, who says, Karana is that by which something is done. Kriyate anena iti karanam. It may be the mind, organs of perception, organs of action. All of them are called karana, the means, the instruments of doing. So that is karanam. So you need a karanam to perform an action. First. Second, karma. Karma always we have understood, till now we have understood karma means action. Here karma does not mean action, but as per definition of Adi Shankara, it is that which is most desired by the agent. This is very important difference, which we have to note. Otherwise we will miss the point. Karma, hitherto we always saying karma means action, karma means action, karma means action. Here in the contextual meaning is, karma is that which is most desired by the agent. There can be a secondary object and a primary object for an action. The primary object is the real karma. Swami Dayananda Saraswati gives the following example. The primary object, that is the most desired object in cooking, is the final cooked food. Cooked food is the primary object. The processes involved in preparing that cooked food are all secondary. It may be cutting vegetables, boiling water, whatever you do. They are all secondary. Your aim is cooked food. That is the primary object, the most desired object. Then the third thing is karta, agent of the action. If karta is there, everything will follow. Hence these three, karanam, karma and karta, they are the constituents of action. Karma sangraha, that is what Bhagwan says. Karanam karma kartede trivida karma sangraha. These three form the basis for performing an action. If any one of them is missing, then you cannot perform any action. Whether the action is performed by kayika, vachika or manasika. This also you must platforms. 5 factors working on 3 platforms. Swami Chinmayananda ji's words. 5 factors. I don't want to repeat what are those 5 factors. Already several times it has been repeated. Working on 3 platforms. Kayika, vachika or manasika. Body, speech or mind. Swami Chinmayananda says the impulse to an action is threefold. Jnanam, that is knowledge. Jneyam, that is known. And Parijnada, that is knower. In Vedanta, it is called as Triputi, not Tirupati. Tirupati is the god where it is the place where Balaji god resides. It is Triputi, indicating experiencer, experienced, and the resultant experience. Without these three, no knowledge is ever possible. All impulses to act arise out of a play of these three. The experiencer playing in the field of the experienced gains for himself the various experiences. I repeat, these are all very, very important and interesting. The experiencer playing in the field of the experienced gains for himself the various experiences. These constitute the contents of all the actions. How impulses to an action arise, that is important. These are all impulses to an action that we understand. How it arises. The impulse to an action can spring either from the experiencer in the form of a desire or deep urge to experience something. So we are the experiencers. So it arises in the form of a desire to acquire something, to experience something. That is one. Second, from the experienced, that is the object we have experienced, then it gives us a temptation again to enjoy that. The third, from the experience itself, it is in the form of memories stored in our mind. So the past experiences again and again come to us and creates an impulse again for an action. So these three. One is experiencer in the form of desire. Another is experienced, the object in the form of temptation, and the experience in the form of memories in the mind. Swami Chinmayananda says the motivation or impulse to act reaches us only from these three sources. Beyond these three, there is no other impulse to an action. Karma chodana. So I don't, even if it amounts to repeating, I again say, one is from the experiencer himself, the impulse to act in the form of a desire. The second is from the object, experienced object, in the form of a temptation. Third is in the form of experience, that which gets recorded in our mind and which creates it becomes a memory. Again, it impulses you for an action. So these three are karma chodana, impulses to an action. Then the threefold basis for action. The impulse to an action, when it has arisen, must also find a field to act. And the basis for action, karma sangraha, is constituted of the three things. One is karana, that is instruments. Second is karma. Already I said karma here does not mean action. Karma is here the reaction or the final end. And the third, karta, the agent, the actor himself. The sense of agency expressed by the ego, smitten by its desire, enters the field with a clear picture of what it intends to achieve or gain. That is the fruit of action. The fruit meaning here, the profit or gain that is intended to be gained by the action is indicated here by the term karma, work. That is what I already said. Here karma does not mean action. It is a fruit. Swami Chinmayananda quotes Adi Shankara here, who says karma here means the end. Final. We saw the example of Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Cooked fruit is the final end. All the processes are secondary. So the final end is karma here. When a desirer, the agent, encouraged by his constant attraction towards a satisfying end, whatever it is, it could be money, it could be anything, towards a satisfying end, wants to achieve it, he must necessarily have the instruments of action, karanam. These instruments include not only the organs of perception, organs of action, but also the inner equipments of mind and intellect. Hence, the total contents of any activity, that is karma sangraha, are the sum total of one, an agent having a desire towards whatever he wants. First, plus maintaining his mind a clear picture of the end goal. That is second. Plus, third, with all necessary instruments to act upon. Agent is required, then the end, final goal in view, that is required. Three, the instruments are required. These three, karanams, karma, karta, they are the parts of karma sangraha, karma assembly, the basis for all karmas. Thus, the impulse to action and the instruments for action or the machinery that implement it are the same for all of us. If you take, the impulse is the same. The instruments which we are using, it is all same. Desires may vary, but the instruments which you are using are the same. But when everything is the same, what accounts for the difference in all our actions? That is the question. So, action we have to completely understand. Then only we can go to the next verse. We will get into the next verse tomorrow. Verse 18 again. Jnanam yeyam parijñāta trivida karma chodana karanam karma kartedi trivida karma sangraha. Next verse we will see tomorrow. Harihom Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. Narayana 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 Narayana